Welcome to the Southern Oracle. My name is Mats. I am metaphysical counselor and very much into a lot of things that are not simply metaphysics, but things like witchcraft and so on. And as I have two podcasts, one in Luxembourgish and one in English, and as my Luxembourgish podcast is getting closer to the 100 episode mark, I got the idea to ask people from Facebook pages, from forums and so on, if they had questions or if they had subjects they wanted to hear about, so that I can also, at a certain moment, reach maybe the 100 episode mark with this podcast. And there was one question that came up, and actually in the beginning I wanted to use it as a 100th post or as a reminder of the 100th post of the Luxembourgish podcast, but I think it is so important that I will bring it up right now. And to give you an idea, I took several notes to the whole subject. I came up with ideas and I really had my thoughts about it, because there was one point of it that it hit me in a certain way. So first of all, the question or the subject was proposed by Julianne, who is a part of Pagan of the Path, which you find on Facebook. And the question was a little bit more global concerning the higher self. So that there are a lot of teachers and a lot of teachings how to be connected to either the higher self or to guides. And what really hit me in all this was the fact that she said, yes, it is very interesting for the non-psychics in this. And the question that came up for me was, is there really a person who is not psychic? This is where I want to start. And I am absolutely aware that there are a lot of people who say, listen, I do not sense any connections, I do not hear guides, I do not have a feeling for my higher self, and so on and so on. And unfortunately, a lot of people believe that they may not be well enough evolved and think that it is their fault and so on. And I just want to broaden the whole subject as far as it is possible and as far as I have as ideas with the thoughts I put up in this, and to find out if maybe there is a way to see all this in a different way. So the first thing I want to bring up is this idea that maybe there are non-psychic people. And to bring this up, let me try to explain. What is psychic in the first thing? Because today this is a term that is determined in a certain way, but are we right to determine it like this? So don't get me wrong, I am not going to attack anyone. I just want to open doors for a broader perception and a broader perspective concerning such a subject. Because if I take it correctly and using the word psychic, it is linked to the word psyche, which is our part in ourself. So to give you an image, imagine that what we call a higher self, the soul as a whole, is something that is not in our body, and the part of the soul that enters our body and that is connected to our body and gives our body the possibility to move around with a certain conscious idea behind it is the psyche. So because if you switch both words, soul and psyche, you get very close, and so maybe this is a good way to imagine this. We are normally quite aware that the soul is not just a part that is in our body, so that way you can imagine it a little bit like the tentacle of an octopus. So you have the big head of the octopus, which is the soul, and part of the soul, which is the leg, with their own brains. So that is then the part, the psyche, that is in your body. Just to give you an image, I hope it's not horrifying too much and you take the humor behind it. So what is actually happening and what is it? So being psychic would mean that we are going to use our psyche to be aware of that connection. I'm not saying we are connecting to it. We are always connected because we are that part. So we just have to become aware that we are that part and that we are connected. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, yeah, sure, I am aware, but there is this difference between being aware and mentally know it and to feel it. And so I fully understand that there are people who say, well, yes, I know it in a certain way, but I do not have the feeling that I feel the connection inside. So is this something that shows something missing or something that is wrong or not functioning? And this is what I'm trying to bring up in different parts. So let's go on with this idea of a person having this capacity. And I don't mean the capacity like a talent or something like that, but as something that comes natural, that is natural. And if we take babies, I'm really going to put it up on that point. We know that babies, when they are born, they have that soft spot on the head, the fontanelle, and actually we have in our brain the pineal gland, and the moment this fontanelle is open, this path is completely, there's no obstruction in the path. So this is the moment that the connection, as we call it, to that higher self of ours is just going back and forth. And this is also how many people have kids who remember something from a former life or see things and so on and so on. All this fits together with this idea. And the moment when slowly the fontanelle is growing together and the skull is becoming firm, that does not mean that the connection is fully cut, but the pineal gland is also sending out and receiving from other levels and not simply from a higher self. Let me put higher between not brackets, but just see it in a more global way, and not we are talking about a godlike being and so on. So it's our simple, our string of information. And what is happening? So you have people who do not have this connection, as I explained several times now, and we get this idea of the third eye, where a lot of people have the understanding that actually the pineal gland is behind what we call the third eye, and people tell me that their third eye is not open, and very often they simply do not know why. So I have one thing that I do not consider as a theory anymore, because it has been proven to me in my experiences all along, and the other one is still a theory. So the first part is how many people as babies have been Christian. And I do not want to bring up a fight against Christianity here. I just want to bring up an explanation. So what is happening? Because when those kids saw things and you had the grown-ups who didn't see the things, they became scared and they believed that it was something evil. Logical. That's the time we come from when we take the last generations. I'm not talking about us as being at the root of cultures that were very close to nature. Not because I want to deny this, but just because this is not part of the explanation right now. So what is happening is that in the beginning, those religions said that you could only be baptized when you were grown up because of your free will and because of all this, amongst others. So let me get this straight. It is not simply to protect kids. I am absolutely clear. So we had something that we called questioning the babies, because I think this is very funny. When I checked online, that there is a difference between baptism and christening. So baptism is for the grown-ups, christening is for the kids. So you see already the difference. What is happening? Everyone who saw that once, and last time I had someone who immediately reacted to it, she remembered this movement of the cross over the third eye. Well, this is to block the third eye. And there you have three options. Either you have a Christian priest who does a normal but for their eyes good job. So always being clear, I am not saying this is good or this is bad, I just try to explain. Which means that your third eye is closed, so you are not bothered, or your family is not bothered by it, you seeing things that you shouldn't see. And maybe later on, when you are grown up and you start meditating on your third eye, this seal is quite easily broken. So a lot of people, the moment they grew up and this was something that was interesting them, and they started making meditations, visualizations for that third eye, it opened. Then you have those where the priest is someone who is really like sort of, no, I want that person completely under this pressure, and I don't want that person to have that connection to a higher self, to whatever, and also because of a power game, and they make a far stronger seal. And you have those who don't really care about what they are doing, who don't do a good job in their eyes, and so they can baptize or Christian as much as they want, and they are never going to close a third eye in any way. So I have seen the three of them. So the first thing is that maybe your third eye is closed and is blocked because the seal has not yet been broken. So I consider it not to be something that there is no connection, but that the connection has simply been blocked, and that something can be done to deblock this connection, not this connection, but this seal, so that the connection flows freely again. This is the first thing. My theory is also that as this has been done over so many generations, I start wondering if it could be that some people don't sense the connection because over generations their pineal gland did not have the opportunity to work properly. So this would mean either you make work on a generational part also, or you have to work a little bit more concentrated on the fact that your third eye isn't working. Trust me, you can make a post-it. I am going at the end of the podcast, I'm going to go into ideas what you can do to open it. And there are certainly many more, but those are the ones I can give you. So it is not that you do not have the capacity, but that someone has simply closed that door and you have to find the key to open it. This is the first part of this idea. And I want to bring this up a little bit further before I go into ideas of higher self and guides, because there's something that is very interesting. How often do I have people who come to me and who say that they do not have any connections at all, and I love to work with the Batsa, for example, and when I tell them in the Batsa, that's the Taoist astrology, not simply the year and the animal as a lot know it, but there are more symbols, and if one of the elements is missing, then those people intuitively do already something to be in contact with the missing element. The last one I had no water. Water was missing, and the first reaction I got was, oh, that is why I go swimming twice a week since I am, 12 or something like that. So you get the idea. It is not something that you do, that you are aware of, that you are connected. So it sometimes is simply the awareness that is missing, but not the connection in itself. Just to open that one for a second moment, but let me go back to the other point. So a lot of those people who teach things or who are professionally working this way tell us that either they are connected to their higher self, or that they are connected to guides. Is this the same or not? I would like to bring this part up. So in the bigger whole, it's all the same. So we are one and so on, but I want to bring in the nuances that may be important for the work we are doing here and for our life here. So the higher self, in a certain way, you can explain it as the part being you as a whole, while the guides may be people who are deceased. That may be what you call angels. It can be whatever, where you have connections from beings from another level of existence, and I do not want to consider that level immediately as a level that is higher, but sometimes an outer level out of our reality, so they can give us a better explanation for what is going on inside us, inside of our reality, as well as inside of us as people. So there are nuances, there are differences, which does not mean that your higher self does not have many information, but that you can have a guide at your side. I know of a lot of people, for example, where grandmothers or grandfathers deceased died when the grandchildren were born, and they had those always as a guide at their side. So there are differences, and this is also something else that I want to bring up, because I think it is very interesting. So the question or the text that I got was also concerning that, yes, if you work, or that there are people who work as professionals in all this and so on. What does that really mean? That the moment that someone is doing something like that as a professional, that he is better than you as a normal human being, to be in connection to your higher self, or be aware or sense the connection to the higher self or to another being? Is it really always the idea behind? Is it what they are telling you? Is this what you were taught to believe? And so on and so on. For me, there are nuances, again, there are differences in all this, which I want to bring up, because I think it is very important, especially if you believe that you are non-psychic and you go to somewhere and you believe that that person must absolutely by definition be psychic in a certain way, or psychic in itself. First of all, not everybody, even if they are saying it, is a psychic reader. Let me explain this on a completely basic point. I give you an example. Some time ago, somebody told me that she was learning NLP. And I have the NLP master, so I thought, oh great, she's in NLP. And whenever I came up with something, I said, you remember that presupposition, you remember that tool, and so on. And she said, oh no, I'm not that far, I haven't finished my NLP teaching. And the moment she gave me a business card, on that business card was written that she gave coachings, NLP therapy. So this is just a human behavior. People tell other ones, tell customers, tell clients that they are this, even if they have not even finished their work in it, their teachings in it, and so on and so on. So on a base like NLP, where you have at the end, let's say, a diploma in your hands, on the idea of being psychic, there is no diploma, even if people give you diplomas, but you do not know. That's also a question, and always a question of definition. So some people are not psychic readers. It reminds me a bit of there was a TV series called Psych. It gives you the hint of it. So there are people who see things not in the outside but in you. So you bring up a subject, they react to it. I think that we are also calling it cold reading, especially with cards and so on. And they see your micro expressions, they see the way you react, they see the way you answer, they pay attention at the words that you're using, and so on and so on. So there is no psychic as a higher thing in it. It's a psychological reading. So it's still the same psyche. Let's not forget it. So it may help, don't get me wrong on this, but that does not mean that they are psychic in the way that psychic is per definition explaining that it is being connected to anything that is outside of your body, that is outside of your being as a human being. Then you have those who may be in touch with entities, but that does not mean that every entity is good in a certain way. Some of those entities have a well-hidden agenda behind it and give you answers not simply in a way you want to hear, but in a way that you must come back to the person, that the question is not completely answered, that you go home and you still have this feeling that something is missing. So this is also a way that you have those, because being in connection with a another being or your higher self means also that you have to be absolutely clear in yourself. And I do not want to come up with ideas like you must have a higher vibration, because this idea of higher vibration means that the person is in a judgment what the person considers you to be in a higher vibration or not. And that can mean a lot of things and a lot of morality, which has nothing to do with the idea of being connected or sensing the connection. So maybe this gives you an idea that the moment you walk into such a place and a person is giving you that vibe of, listen, I am the psychic here, you shut up and listen to me, that maybe you are right to just get up again and move out of that room again, okay? Because being psychic does not take away the responsibility to treat the person in front of you really with respect, which means I am not going into I am superior to you, but let's find out what is it why you do not sense the connection, and is sensing the connection the right way to handle the situation you are in. So let's bring in a certain further idea in this. So if you are saying that you are not psychic, or that there are people who are not non-psychic, and you consider yourself belonging to this group of non-psychic people, so maybe there's just that first what if that I have already brought up, that the connection was cut through questioning, through generational stuff, through not getting used to it, because being in connection with the own psychicness is rather like an exercise, like you're getting best at reading tarot cards when you're exercising. You're getting best at getting the feeling and the hunch of this connection with another realm of yourself or of other beings by exercising. So maybe it is just a question of exercise too. And we should never forget in all this that we have an idea of, we have a definition of all this through New Age esotericism, through new spirituality, and we forget in all this our subconscious. So on a subconscious level, we have already the first connection, which is the connection to our ancestors, to our world, to everything in the subconscious, because our subconscious does not function like our consciousness. So there is already a connection, and that connection, this subconscious, is again connected to something bigger. If something like this is interesting you on a completely different level, I can propose you to read the book of Jill Bolte Taylor, My Stroke of Insight, who is a neurological person, so she is into neurology, and explains the right and the left hemisphere of your brain, and explains that our right hemisphere of the brain never sees a non-connection. So it's always connected to the big whole thing with all the data and all the information that is out there. And the moment, because for her, the other hemisphere shut down during a stroke, and so she got this experience of non-connection in a completely scientific way, because she's a scientist. So it's quite interesting to read this book, and when you hear her talking about it, it's even quite fun to listen to her, because at a moment she said she had the feeling that she sounded like a Labrador, I think, because she thought she was still speaking normally because she thought it, but her brain was not functioning the way that she could still pronounce words, because that part of the brain was shut down. Just to give you an example. And at the end, not at the end of the book, but at the end of the whole thing, she got a feeling of that that connection to this all, and being part of that big whole thing. So this is just something that we shut down in a certain way, using very often only the left half of our brain because we have been taught to do so. Speaking works on this because it is linear. Everything that is linear is this way, and as we are so much connected to that part, we are taught, we are educated to be like this, we forget about the rest of the brain in a certain way. And I know a lot of people are going to tell you, but I am always connected at that, I am left-handed and so on. This is something to do with exercising too. So to get the exercise, how to get both brain parts into an equilibrium in a certain way. And this is also through meditation, because the word meditation means the middle and brings us into the middle to have the best of both sides in a certain way. This is a meditation I can talk about if you like. I'm not going to explain it in here at this moment. So all this has more to do with what is New Age esotericism defined as being psychic versus what is being psychic really. Being psychic is natural. We have just forget being natural in it. So the idea of opening the third eye, I will come back to that one also. No, I can already come back at this moment. What I have noted is for the next podcast. So what does that mean? So if we can say that the problem is not that we do not sense those things, and I will bring up one other part of it too. So a lot of people are going to tell you, well, you see, it's not simply sensation. It is, some people are more visual and they will see things, other ones are more auditive and they will hear things, and there are people who are really in that knowledge and they simply know things. And I am absolutely sure that there are people who will tell me that there is a fourth version too. And it is not like knowing things in your head, but it is like your body and your psyche, your energy reacting to it, becoming into alignment of what is there as information, as data, so that you react to it, and you may even start to handle things in a certain way without even thinking of it and knowing it in that way. This is because there are a lot of kind of frequencies, and when people are talking about psychic abilities and they're talking about feeling and sensation, this is actually a very yin energy. But the upper layers go into yang energy, and the yang energy is far more, it's finer in a certain way, and you are not going to feel it. So not sensing that connection does not mean you are not connected, either because you have lost the idea what it means and what it is for you to be connected, or because you are connected on a completely different level, which will not be something that can be sensed or experienced through our human senses. So this is also an option in the whole thing. It becomes a sensation normally if you are working more with the third eye, but you have many entrance points in your body, you have many entrance points that is connecting your body to those outer layers and levels of existence, so that it is not simply that option. The problem in my eyes is that you do not feel connected because you have experienced so many information, not you have experienced the situation in itself, but you have experienced so many information that people tell you being connected, being psychic means that and that and that, and you have to live it that and that way, and if you do not have that experience, then you are not psychic. So first of all, if you want to get back to this idea of becoming aware that you are psychic as it is your nature as a human being, then that means at first time just to take all those presuppositions you must do and you must behave and you must sense or you must experience that and that on that and that level and in this and this way, and you put all this somewhere in the next bin you find, and be open to whatever may come and whatever experience you as an individual make in all this. And if in all this you say, okay, but I have the feeling that I haven't broken the seal and I have been Christian and so on, or there may be a seal that is generational, then you go and you make meditations, and the meditation concerns to really go into this idea of entering the third eye. There are 2-3 things that I want to give you in that line. A lot of people concerning meditation very often say you breathe in through the nose and you breathe out through the mouth. This is a good way to just clean the passageways, okay? Do this if you have some negative thoughts, or you are not concentrating, you're not ready to do a meditation. The first breath should be like that. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. So that way it gets like a circle and you just get rid of whatever is just keeping you from that kind of concentration. Again, concentration means with centration, being in the middle. It's not something outside. And the moment you have done that, you can start meditating by inspiring and expiring through the nose. So that way it makes like a wave. It's not a circle anymore. So the wave is you breathe in that energy, you imagine that you breathe it in into your head, and not the third eye on the front, but where the pineal gland is. So in the middle of your brain, really. It's one of the part of the brain where you only have one part of the brain. The rest is normally right or left, but that part is one. There is only one. So that explains already in my eyes a lot in the whole situation. And you imagine that energy coming in. You can visualize it as light. You can simply imagine it as a feeling, and then you simply let come what comes. So there is a yang yin meditation, for example, that breathing in is yang energy, and you bring in this thought to connect, to become aware of the connection to the third eye, to open that third eye, however you want to call it, what feels best for you. And exhale is the moment that you simply let images, feelings, informations, whatever come. You can note them down later on, but that is the way that you can work with it. If you see that there are still problems with it, every kind of vibrational work is helping. Not trying to raise your own vibration, but you can work, for example, with singing bowls, with Christian bowls. You can work with anything that brings in a vibration to it. Several kind of music. You may have the feeling that you sense it more in your third eye or somewhere else. That is a good way. Search for stuff like that, because everything is everything is data. It becomes information when we put it into a form. Everything is energy, everything is vibration, everything is frequency. And that helps you to get the inner frequency inside of yourself, remembering those frequency it wants to tap into to get information. And this information later on may come as a sound, as a voice, as an image, as a knowledge, or something that goes far deeper that you cannot put into any definition that human beings give you for this kind of psychic. So let me close the circle in all this. There are no non-psychic people out there. There are people who are not aware of it, who are still working and doing things intuitively, which is a connection to this higher thing. There are people who simply are not psychic because they have a certain definition of what it means to be psychic and who do not fit that definition. And there are people who do not sense their connection anymore because the third eye has been closed and it can be reopened by working with it. It is like a muscle, in the same way that someone who has not walked for a long time and who has maybe lost a little bit his idea of the movement of his legs needs exercise to it. So that is the point behind it. And whoever is telling you that he is more psychic than you because he's working professional, please stand up, walk out of that room, And I'm not going into, you do not need such negativity in your life, but this person is judging, this person is just putting himself above you and is not going to help you to raise in all this. Not raising in frequency. I am not going into that direction, but to raise you out of your belief that you are not psychic, that you do not have any connection, and is most definitely not going to help you if you become sort of better in it because you have another kind of connection, or you sense another kind of connection to that. Is most definitely not going to help you to rise above him or his idea of how far he or she is. I hope I made a little bit the whole idea a bit vaster for you to understand a little bit better that there is no such thing as being non-psychic. It would be as if I said I am not, my body is not the body or something like that. It's natural. It's the package of you being born as a human being means to have a body, and it means to have a brain and to use a brain and to develop talents at a certain moment, and the same way in that package is being connected to the psychic level of your soul is part of it. And if someone is denying you that idea and this option, then the problem is not with you. It is just that you got with all that is out there and giving you information. It is the problem that you are giving the wrong information about what being psychic means. If there are any questions, please feel free to contact me. Feel free to leave me a note so that I can respond to it and maybe make a second podcast concerning it. I hope I really brought in all the different aspects of it for people to get a broader idea and a broader idea of what lies behind all this horizon. And as always, thank you for listening.